Okay, so let me quickly revise. Let me share my desktop and let me quickly revise what we covered yesterday. So in the beginning we had a very formal demo, and we saw a few people were from, so our audience were actually uh, few were from, I think this is not readable, this color. Let me make it blue. So a few were from QTP background, so they know some scripting, and few were from JMeter background, and few were freshly graduated and or freshly starting their career in IT. Okay, and so we also went through what exactly we are going to cover in this training throughout this session. So went through the contents of performance testing training. The advantage is, the first two sessions are the free, so you first get an idea whether is it really suitable for you and whether you have opportunity to work in this field. So that was the two free videos in PT. Instead of directly jumping to tool, which most of the time happens, like very few people has background of the performance testing. They start directly learning over the job, but this the experience which I have from elsewhere or anywhere, that will be useful for you to directly work with the professional people. And the another advantage is there are many videos on the Loadrunner, and you can, so those are the recorded videos, and you can access them at any time. I guess there are, I think, almost 20 to 30 videos. I don't remember exactly, but it's on loadrunnerjmeter.com. So once you join this course, you will get access to those videos. Okay. So beside this training content, we started with our first demo yesterday, and what we covered yesterday was really very high level things, but those are really required before you start anywhere, and that's applicable to any technology, either development or testing, anywhere. So we went through the performance testing, what it exactly. So I usually try to prefer to use the PT as a short form. We have very limited space here to write, so I'm being a little bit conservative. So what is the performance testing that we covered yesterday, and what to measure, that we covered yesterday. And so majorly, I guess if I remember, and just to note it down for all of you, and if a few people are new here, I can see it here, so that's quite a little bit, maybe the you can say the revision or something of that sort. So you can measure the so let me type that one more time. So yesterday we covered what is performance testing and what to measure there. So we covered maybe response time or user load or capacity. And the success and failure factor of the transaction. So sometimes it's called maybe success and failure. Okay, and so that's what in the what to measure. And We also try to cover on which parameter the response time depends on. So response time of page, or even you can say the performance depends on. So we covered both in terms of the type of page or even the volume of data, which we covered yesterday. Like depending upon the volume of data, the performance may vary. Okay, so that's it on a high level. We also covered slightly on where to do performance testing and how to do. So basically, we simulate multiple user or real life scenario. It can be even single user, but very high volume, and we tend to do it on stable environment and good hardware, just like PRD production. Okay, so I guess many of you might not have heard all these things previous to yesterday, and at least we are able to see them, know them in this first demo. And now so there was one PPT which I said I can share that with the Ashish, and he can share with you. So that PPT has all of these things. So maybe let me take the screenshot of this, because I'm going to rub this. And okay, and so today we are going to cover the next and the second part of this in the performance testing, and then we are going to start with tool in our next session. So today we are going to cover the next things is more related to the performance testing. So let me try to bring it back here, my editor favorite. Okay, so have you ever heard types of performance test, or why do we basically need the variety of performance test? Any one of you have any idea? So like we yesterday covered, there can be the real life user. We took two examples. One was the IRCTC. One was the IRCTC, which is booked for railway ticket booking, and it's very slow website during in the morning hour, maybe 8 to 11 a.m. That's because the tickets are available only during that time, either Tatkal ticket or regular ticket. So how do we measure this performance of day-to-day life? Either IRCTC, or the other example also we covered was let me bring it here. The other example we covered was maybe like a State Farm, where the people who are actually have taken the insurance from this company, they might try to perform various activity, like they can submit claim, or they can do any activity. They can make payment to their premium. Okay, but even this application might also have everyday user volume. Maybe 5 users are doing this activity and 10 users are making premium payment. So to measure this performance, what type of test we should do? Because this is a day-to-day performance measure, so that's called the load test. So basically, we try to simulate the real-life user. In case of IRCTC, it might be the day-to-day user volume, and in case of any other application, State Farm, it will be day-to-day user volume at any peak hour. So here we try to simulate the real user volume during peak hour. Now peak hour can be different for different application. Like in the IRCTC, I said it's 3 hours, and maybe State Farm might have just 1 hour, anything. And also the user load might be also different. It can be maybe 100 users or 1,000 users, anything. Okay, so basically the purpose is to measure the performance, to measure the response time, and to measure the performance, and to measure the so performance means the response time, and how many users can maybe make a premium payment at a time, or they can submit claim at a time. How many users are able to book ticket at a time without throwing any application error, without throwing any server error, any kind of error, whether application is down or anything. So throughput, which we covered yesterday, like throughput is the success factor of different end-to-end test cases. So end-to-end test cases volume is nothing but basically throughput. So we try to measure this factor at peak hour and at anticipated user load. So that's very realistic, right? So do we really need any other test actually? Because this is covering each and everything. We are simulating the real user, and we are measuring the response time and the throughput. That's what we want. And if there are issues, then we try to fix them and retest it. So what else actually? But there are a few more tests actually. The other test is stress test. As name suggests, it's a stress. It's something higher than load, because daily volume, as our clock runs every day for 24 hours, we work for maybe 8 hours every day, and like our productivity and everyone's productivity, everyone's browser accessing internet at a time may vary. In the morning maybe we are more energetic, and maybe we are trying to work hard, we are accessing everything. And as the day goes off, maybe during lunchtime or something. So just like that, the real user will also be. As I said, the 8 to 11 a.m. is the maximum user volume. But what if there is some seasonal day, like Diwali is coming, or in case of airline flight booking, Christmas, the many people starts booking airlines, then that's a higher volume than day-to-day volume. So day-to-day volume we are covering in load test. That's why we need the additional test as stress test. So anything you can cover is higher than the load test is nothing but stress test. So there is no thumb rule how much user load we should cover, but some industries might cover maybe 130% of load test user. Some might cover 150%, or some might take till application crash. Here the objective is to see whether this application supports higher volume. That's the only objective. We are not going to measure the response time or throughput and all that. If the application is working, if it's not crashed. Oops, I miss it out actually. Oh. All right, no issues. I can repeat it out. So first we covered was the load test, and the second one is the stress test. So anything more than load test, 150% of or even maybe 130% depending upon the application, or even till 130% of load test user, or till application crash. So that's what we try to measure, whether it works or it does not work. We don't measure the response time or anything else in this test, because that's been already measured in the load test, and that's the day-to-day volume. So we don't try to measure those things here. So that's what, right? I mean, we covered the day-to-day volume. In the stress test, we covered the
Hello.
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 I think it's got disconnected.
Maybe we need to again connect, I guess. Not sure. I want.
are you able to hear me? Because I can see some chat.
Yeah, it got disconnected. Now it's.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it got disconnected, and I think it got reconnected again.
Oh. So till what point you guys were with me?
When you are about to write for the second time, then it. Yeah, up to this point, yeah.
Okay, that's strange. Okay, so
you are saying that we do the load testing to measure the response time, right? So it will be an average response time, or how exactly we measure the response time of an application?
yes, that's a very good question. I thought we might be covering it in the analysis, but it's good. Like I wanted to trigger that process, the thinking process in all of you. So this is the average response time, and so what we measure is only the average response time. But again, depending upon some application, because when we say average, so there are different stats. It might be peak, or sometimes we call it maximum response time, or even 90th percentile, or even mean. But we should not be measuring mean actually, or we should not be worried, or we should not be doing our analysis on mean. So majorly we cover average response time and try to share it, but some customers are very choosy and they might be interested in 90th percentile. So max maybe they can ignore, or some analysis or defect will be there and we'll have to fix that. So again, depending upon application, but majority time average and 90th percentile covers the requirement. Okay, and this average response time is throughout the peak hour and accessed by many users on the application. So if you have missed the stress test, I will repeat it. Stress test is the just like the load test. We don't change anything in the stress test. It's the same volume in the stress test. It's either 150% of load test or 130% of load test, depending upon which type of application you have. Because when I was working for one healthcare client, and there we used to have standard, we used to test application up to 130% of load test. So we're testing 30% additional volume, but Again, for the same client, in few application we have tested it till the application crashes. So we were trying to measure till what user the application works fine. So all depends upon our customer and what they need. But there is no extra effort of setting up all these. There is very minute effort, and we can tweak here and there and redo the test without any major effort. Yes, but the test execution might take its own time, and if there are defects, then to fix them and to retest them, it might take further time. And so why additional stress test is required? Because what load test is covering is day-to-day life, but there might be additional seasonal volume, you can say, or seasonal means if there is something like Thanksgiving or Christmas or Diwali, so people are traveling from here to there and different places, so everybody booking their flight or maybe booking their train tickets. There can be campaign volume as well. Sometimes banks run their campaign, or even some IT industry like maybe Amazon are running their campaign to share their virtual machines, or even some offers like Jan Dhan Yojana, which is happening right now. Suddenly there is increase in the bank's volume in India because of Jan Dhan Yojana. So all these occasional increase is basically a stress test. It may not be necessary that all these are happening. Something you can predict, like Amazon might be giving some Thanksgiving offer, right? So they will have to test whether their application, mobile app, and either on tablet or website supports those mini user, this sudden rise in the user. So that's what we cover in the stress test. We try to measure whether application supports those many user or application dies, whether it stops. Both these two tests are sufficient enough, but there is additional something required, because both of these tests are of very short duration, maybe only peak hour of 1 hour, 2 hour, or 4 hour. But this soak test is actually of 12, again depending upon customer, it can be the 12 or 16 or 24 hours. Again, as I was working for different customer and everybody had different need. So might be the application is globally accessed, that's why they wanted the 24-hour, and sometime it might be access locally in the same region, in the same country. That's why only 12 hours. So what we do here is actually either some customer want 100% users or 80% users. So where I was working for few customer or majority time, I was doing only 80% of the load test volume. That is load test user load, but for longer duration. What happens is, as we discussed yesterday, like any performance depends upon the server, and the server might have the different configuration. What I can do, I can try to draw something. So like yesterday we have seen, this might be my web front-end server.
So during the soak test, what exactly we measure? We measure the response time, we measure the resource utilization. What exactly we measure during soak test?
Yeah, so I was going to come there. We measure the throughput. On the Loadrunner side, we measure the kilobytes per second returned by server. And in terms of application, we measure how much transactions per second being completed or getting passed. So all those are relevant. I'm not going to cover many hi-fi things today, because it might be confusing for you guys now, but it will be very funny, very interesting when we will be going there in the analysis section. So, but I can quickly draw how things looks like when you will be doing the testing. So the throughput graph will be going somewhere like this. It will be increasing up to a point, and then it will be stable. in case of there are no performance issues. So this graph I'm saying, this is the throughput graph. Bear with me if few people are not getting, because this is not part of our first course, but since few people are really aware of these things, so that's why I'm trying to cover additional, but this is anyway going to cover in detail in the latter section. So what I'm trying to say here is this is the throughput. You guys may not be here, see it here. So this is the throughput, and this is the time, the clock time I can say, and this is the throughput. The blue one is the throughput, and what I can say, this might be the user load. So let's say this is the user load. It's increasing maybe up to maybe any user load, and then once the user load are stable at particular time period for maybe 1 hour, whatever peak hour duration we discuss here. So this is the most realistic case when there are no performance issues. So this red one is the user increase volume I can say, or we also say something the ramp up user. So basically when users are increasing and then they are steady, the application is also sending more and more data because more users are accessing. And then once stable users are performing same activity, then the throughput is also stable. It is consistent. So this is the case when no performance issues are there. I can choose some other color. So this is the case when no performance issue is there. Okay, and same graph will be there during the soak test, but at a lower volume. As I said, it can be either 80%, and for the longer duration, this duration will be longer in terms of the soak test of maybe 12 hours during soak test. Now what difference does it make? I was going to cover here actually that the web front end has the different hardware like we discussed yesterday, maybe RAM and CPU and maybe disk and any other parameter, number of servers as well. Okay, there might be number of servers or cores. Okay, so the RAM is basically a critical factor in the soak test. We are trying to measure the memory utilization, and if there are the memory leaks, then those will be coming up only during the long duration, that's 12 hours or 16 hours or 24 hours. And that's why we cover the soak test only for issues on the server side, which will be coming only after a certain duration. Now what will happen if there is a performance issue? This was the no performance issue case, but what if there are performance issues? So let me choose some other color. Now in case of what will happen in case of performance issue, the memory will be looking like something like this, or throughput. So server throughput and the application performance are related. If application performance is good, then throughput will be also same the way the blue color is plotted. But in case the application does not support these many users, and let's say it breaks out at this point, at midpoint, so what will happen? The throughput will be again steady up to half point, and after that I will have to use some other. And after that, then it might be going up and down, and at one point it might crash up to 0. This 0 happens when server is down. It's not able to take any more requests and it's down. So that's when in case of the performance issue. But if application supports till this many user, then what will happen? The throughput will continue here till this point, and even it will be stable here because we haven't found any performance issue during load test and stress test. But in the soak test, if we found some issue, then after the long duration, that is after peak hour, but in the remaining long duration, this throughput graph might go something like this. and this happens because there is a memory leak. It can be memory leak, it can be maybe connection pool might not be released, or even I have found one issue during longer tests like cursors. If you guys are not aware about cursor, so on the back end, on the DB side, whenever you publish or you try to get some results, so cursors are doing that job. So they bring the results are published on the cursor, and then web front end brings that data, so or it reads that data. So there are limitations in cursors, and after a certain point, this memory was going down and down because cursors were not closed; they remained open. Okay, so any type of bottleneck, it can be memory side, it can be some shared pool, or it can be the cursor and anything. Those will be coming up, those will be appearing once we will be running this test for longer duration. At the same point, what we are trying to measure on the server side, this all we talked about client side, but how we find out the exact issue. So on the server side, there will be the similar graph, okay, but of something else, of memory. This will be graph of memory, or it can be even the connection pool, anything. It can be even cursors. And here it will be time. Just the numbers are different. Here maybe here we were measuring in terms of, I already mentioned here, the kilobytes per second or megabytes per second, whatever is the factor. But on the server side there will be memory, so the memory will be measured in terms of bytes. It may be the gigabyte, most probably it will be the gigabyte. Connection pool might be 100, 2000. Cursors might be, I written here wrongly, I misspelled it, so this is the correct spelling. And cursors might be maybe limited, and so what will happen, and in that case during longer, so instead of drawing this, I should be drawing the available cursors or available memory. It will keep on reducing from the beginning, but you won't really realize the slowness because you still have this much available. Okay, so you will start facing the problem when there are no cursors available or no memories available. So after that, your server, your end user will start seeing the performance issue because there is no resources. All these are resources. Okay, so that's the main objective of SOAP test, and yep, that's it. So does it answer your question?
Yeah.
Gaurav, I have a question for you. In the load test, you have given an example of ISITC, wherein the peak hours will be from 8 to 11. So during that period only we do load test, or else it may be any time that we do?
Time is not required, but that duration is required. Because our server will be different from the production environment. So like we said, this web front-end server is having certain RAM, some CPU, some disk, and some number of server and cores. So we want all of these only on the test environment. Only on test environment, right? So does not matter how at what time you are running the test, because the actual users will be accessing on the production environment and you will be doing test on test environment. So you can do any time, but that duration is important. What we call it as the peak hour. Peak hour can be 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, and of course the user volume. We should be testing the same volume. If our test environment is of same capacity, if our test environment is of maybe 50% capacity, then we should be testing 50%. That's something called as actually scaling factor of environment. Ideally, we should get the 100%, but the production environment, ideally, this is the ideal scenario. But it's very costly. Production environment, you can understand the IRCTC, so many users are supporting, even in case of banks. So in case if you're getting maybe 50%, so you should be testing only 50%. So performance testing is really not limited to only measuring performance and fixing the issue. There are different categories. You guys can be, after this course, you guys can be maybe performance engineer, that you might be already thinking, right? But there might be even the capacity planning as well. You can become the capacity planner engineer. So what we do is actually the load generation part is same, but after that, instead of what we do in the performance engineering, we fix the issue and we retest it. But in capacity planner, we do not fix any issue or we do not raise any issue. We try to measure these graphs which I just shown here. And at what percentage or at what the number of user, how much memory is used, those statistics are captured, and the user volume is increased in a steady manner in some factor. So first you tested with maybe 100 user and then 2000 and something like that, 10,000, and then you try to predict this value. You try to plot this value in the capacity planning. So when your users are increasing, then this might be going the memory utilization is going something in this fashion. And if one customer or maybe that customer needs certain volume, or in production it might be expecting something like maybe 1,000 user, so that capacity planner will say you should go with this particular value, sorry, not X on Y axis, on this particular value. This might be 4 GB RAM, 10 GB RAM, 100 GB RAM, anything. So you have that option as well. You can become the capacity planner, and all these analysis will be useful because you can also be doing BPM. Sorry for color. So that's the business process management. There are tools like HP, not HP, but yeah, Dynatrace is there. Yeah, it's also called the APM. Yeah, APM is also the tool available. Who is this? I think somebody is already working in this. Somebody just answered. Okay, so APM is also the field which will be open for you if you do these activities. APM guys also simulate the single user test of all the business flows, and they will try to measure response time, and they will do all this correlation, the server side and the client side, and they will be keep on publishing those results to the business users, so that sometime you might not be doing, or you might not be changing any application, you might not be doing anything, but there might be some sort of performance issue. So what does the APM people do is they will keep on measuring the performance and keep on sharing those numbers. So in case if something is happening, the business team or development team or production support team can do something prior to end user gets affected. So all these three track, I don't know. I mean, there might be some research as well. Some companies might be doing the research. So anything. So all the first three are more important. So you have all these three tracks open. Okay, anyways, we are far away from our topics actually. So somebody asked me question, and did I answer that question?
Yeah. Do we replicate the production environment, like say, like the RAM, CPU, disk, whatever the production environment is having? Do we mimic or simulate the same in the test environment? Only then we get the correct result, right?
That's 100% correct.
Do we do that all the time, or else we, because we will not? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I don't like say you have a machine and you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Like in the Loadrunner, we'll have all, like we'll be configure all the production environment. We will simulate that, like this many RAMs, this many CPUs, and this in the Loadrunner, or else it is. Am I understanding it right or not, I'm not sure. But then that we replicate the production environment or not, that is my question.
Yeah, so there are two environments. One is the test environment, and second is the testing environment. Are you able to follow the difference between these two? Here there will be front-end server, like I said, and there might be the middleware server. There might be database as well. Okay, and there is a testing environment, like I said, or you just now have said, the Loadrunner and all those server. So this is the testing environment from where I'm testing. It's just different terminology, or you might call that as a test environment and this as a testing environment. But this is the Loadrunner servers, maybe Loadrunner agent, Loadrunner controller. Okay, and this is the front-end server, and this may be the middleware server, and this may be the backend. Okay, so this environment, the test environment, the application which we are testing, should be of this capacity, RAM, CPU, disk, and this should be similar to production. Okay, and this environment is something else. The capacity of this environment should be as per the Loadrunner or HP guideline. If you need to test maybe 100 user, then very few low size RAM would be sufficient. But if you want to test maybe 50K user, that's very huge. So you need maybe better RAM here, right? And maybe better CPU and maybe more number of servers, right? And so what this environment is doing basically, it is just simulating the user. It is just helping us to simulate the user and access the application. Thousands of users. Okay. So both the environments are different, and this environment should be 100% production to this is a test environment and should be 100% mimicking to production. But in case if you don't have the 100%, which will be the case for all the time, because you cannot have two hardware of production mimicking, because that's costly, because you guys will be testing maybe just 1 month, 2 months. What else? I mean, that environment will be remaining idle. If some customer really has so many applications, then they will be doing shared based testing. So you can use the same hardware for one application testing in first 1 month, and then maybe second application testing in the second month, something like that. The agile cycle or those cycle will keep on continuing. But if you don't have, then you will have to reduce the user load to maybe, if your environment is 50%, then do 50% test, and then this will be sufficient. If although there will be the risk, some factor, but the architect, the development team should be aware of such risk, because we don't have environment, so we will not be able to do. Some people do the something called analysis on these results. They try to measure the performance on maybe 25%, 50%, and the customer might ask us to do this analysis and maybe share your results. What will be the case for 100% user? But that will be all depending upon some risk, either major risk or minor risk, but there will be risk. Okay, but this will be the better approach, either 100% or 50%. You directly reduce your user volume to that level and do the testing. All right. So did I answer, or did I confuse you?
Okay. A bit confusing.
Yeah. So once you start working, then you will start realizing, because I can give many examples. Sometime I was running behind the course, like yesterday I said. The environment was very poor, and I was facing many more challenges, and this response time and all those parameters very high. But we have seen in production it was very better. Then we realized environment was the problem. Not all the environment, like he has said, maybe front end, middle tier, or database or dataware. Maybe only one environment is very much low, just 10% of production. So you cannot test 100% volume on that environment, right? So the real life example, will help you. But to start with and to be safe, you should keep on asking the better hardware and better environment.
I don't think the in-house setup is similar to the production environment setup. So we need to reduce and test and say, calculate how it would be in the production, right?
Yes, that's what I hear said. Like some people ask, there is word called extrapolation. So some people might ask, so I was trying to avoid this word because it might be jargon for many of you because there's just second class. But some UK customers are very sensitive. They try to get each and everything once they paid you. So they will ask you to do testing on maybe even 25% of environment, all the CPU, RAM, and everything. And they will ask you to analyze the result and extrapolate it, like how it will perform at 100%. But can we really extrapolate each and everything? That's not really possible. So there will be some sort of risk.
But setting the same environment in the local, in the in-house is very costly, right, Gaurav?
Yes, I mean, if you try to find out on maybe Amazon or anywhere the cost of RAM, maybe after this call you can search for maybe even 10 gigabyte of RAM and then maybe 20 gigabyte of RAM. This is continuously increasing actually. 4 GB RAM, 8 GB RAM is common. That's available on everyone's laptop. So maybe it's a cheap. But when you keep on increasing these RAM, CPU, and even disk, it's not disk like 500 gigabyte or maybe 1 terabyte, which we usually port. It will be very high because there is a database which keeps on replicating. So there will be more than one disk. So that's very costly.
I got some confusion between only peak hour and 150 or 130 of load test users. Can I assume that only peak hour means the 100% of the load which touches to the load test?
Yes. Shall I?
Because only peak hour means what does it mean? Because we are doing some stress also by using 150 or 130, like you said. Then what is the difference between only peak hour and the stress?
Yeah, let me try to explain maybe in some graphical format. That will be very much useful actually. So let me remove this. Okay. So let's say you are the customer and you are asking me to do the testing for your application. And let's say today is maybe Monday. Okay. And then, okay, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe you don't have any user. Okay. And so I will ask, at what volume I should test. And you might say, I don't know because you are the customer. You are expert in your own domain. Maybe you are in the banking or insurance. So you are expert in your domain. So I can ask, to get those details from APM, who is monitoring production, and then he will get me some user load. So maybe Monday, there might be 100 user. On Tuesday, there might be 200 user. On maybe Wednesday, there might be again 120. Every day cannot be the same. All right. So this is a daily, weekly volume, maybe in 1 week. Daily volume in 1 week. Okay. So how long should I be testing? Ideally, let's assume, and ideally, I mean, we cannot get the statistic of every day. Even if we get those, so we'll try to get maybe some peak volume. So this day it's a 200 volume. So we'll be testing with 200 user maybe. Okay. So that's our load test environment. Load test requirement. So load test users will be 200 because that's what we have seen on an average. Okay. Or even there is a huge difference. I will maybe make it to 140 maybe. So we can say, we should test at 140 actually. Okay. But this week was maybe, just any week of the year. But let's talk about the Thanksgiving. Okay. Thanksgiving, or maybe Xmas, or Diwali, anything. So if you have sudden increase in user, then you will see it here, right? Suddenly there might be 200, 400, 500, 300, 600, something like that. Okay, so this seasonal volume I was saying. So if I try to test with this much, so I should be testing with 600, right? That's the highest volume. So that's what we do in stress test. So we are just doing the same test like load test, but at higher volume. Now peak hour is what we are saying is this is just a daily volume. Okay, this we are covering in load test, and this we are covering in stress test. I will maybe show it some different color. Okay, but this is just for Tuesday. What about what happened in one Tuesday? Okay, it might be the morning time between 9 to 12. Oops. So 9 to 12, 12 to 3. Okay, and then maybe 3 to 6, 6 to 12, something like that. It will keep on continuing. So in the morning hour, maybe it's just 100 user, and then maybe 90 user, and then maybe 140 user. So that is my peak hour. If I am testing with 140, how long these users are there? How much duration is 3 hour or 2 hour? So that's my peak hour. And this is the peak volume of entire year. Okay, so this is peak volume, and this was the average volume. I can say average volume for peak hour. That's the difference. So I will be testing for 3 years for 140 users of business use cases in the load test, and same business use cases but for higher volume. That's peak volume. That's the difference. Any other query?
Yeah, I got the clarification.
Okay. So let's go back here. So are there any tests? Can you remember anything which you have heard prior to this? There are few more tests actually. Oops, there is color. I will have to change. Okay, anyways, I will continue now in blue. So there is one more test that's called some people call it as network test. Okay, prior to that, there is another test that's called the spike test. Very few people know about it, and very rarely this one is used because it's very specific to a use case or customer. What do we do in spike test? We suddenly increase the volume and measure the performance. Performance means against the response time or the whether passed or failed, the transactions. That's what the spike test. One example yesterday I have given, that the trading, it usually starts in the morning, but suddenly there is increase in the morning. But after maybe 10 o'clock, we guys might be again going back to our office and doing some work, and then we'll be checking at some different times. But in the morning, suddenly increase there during that half hour. So we try to replicate that scenario here. This load test is just now here I explain in this graph. This volume, it was red color. This was the user ramp up pattern, right? This was the steady user increase, okay? But in this spike test, it will be the sudden increase. It can be even like this. Suddenly all users are accessing the application. Same volume I'm testing here, you can see, or it can be maybe even higher than that. It can be the same volume or high, but in a very short point of time. Maybe in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And how application behaves, whether this throughput goes suddenly high or it keeps on crumbling there and response time goes very high, something like that. But very few people knows about it. In one of the interview, I told about these types of tests and he was very surprised. What is this? I never heard this. So that's fine. I mean, customer to customer. But if you search somewhere in Google or anywhere, you will find it definitely. And someday you might get such customer, and if you don't know, then that customer might be running away from you because you don't know something which he already tested maybe a couple of years back. There is one more test, and this is the last test, but again few other tutorial might come up with different types of tests, but this is what I have seen in last many years. Few people call it as geography test or even the network test. So what's the difference in this and all the above one? Remember yesterday, let me show, maybe since this is already packed, let me show in maybe PPT.
Gaurav, we have endurance test also. What is that?
Yeah, so soak test is endurance test. There are very different names. I can note it down here itself. There is called, there are many different names actually. Endurance test, or people call soak test as longevity test. So this, as name suggests, it's endurance, it's for longer duration and it's ending after a long time. It's a soak test, or like we soak our clothes. So basically we are soaking our application for longer duration. Longevity test is for longer duration. So all these three names are same test. But geography or network test is a little bit different. Since this is already packed, let me share through PPT maybe. No, sorry, paintbrush, but new paintbrush. Let me save this somewhere. Okay. So what is network test? Like we yesterday seen, let's say this is the server. I like this shape a lot. So this might be your front end server, and there might be the another the middle tier server, and they can be the back end or anything. So depending upon all your type of application, okay, and all these are connected to each other. Okay, the users are accessing them only through the front end server. This is the front end server. Now I will have to increase this. Okay, this is front end server, and this is the middle tier, and this is the backend database. Okay, and so different users are accessing either user accessing through mobile, maybe this might be their mobile, or some user might be accessing through maybe desktop. This is the desktop, this is keyboard, and maybe this is the another user. Okay, so all these users are accessing through different network. They are accessing the application, okay, through mobile. Now where how these are accessible, all these front end. These might be in US or anywhere. These servers might be in US or Japan or India, anywhere. And the users might be in US. One user might be in US, another user might be in Japan, and some other user might be in China, India. So how they are accessing this is there is different network. This might be the 2G network for mobile, or 3G network for mobile, or 4G network, and even the desktop might have different speed, right? It can be the different LAN, but that's the speed only for the end user. But what about the speed between the server, which is in US, and the user in Japan? There might be the different bandwidth and latency. If you don't know about the latency, what I can do is I can try to ping maybe www.google.com. So this is the IP address of Google, but this what I can figure out is not the actual IP address. This might be hitting some proxy server or load balancer or something like that, and it will show me the latency just now. So okay, the server is not accessible, that's why it is not showing the latency, but I will have to find out something else. Maybe ping. I will have to access maybe. So this is there, right? This is our own website. We can even try to ping, because I'm working right now from home, so I can try to ping our own website. Okay, this as well I'm not accessible. Okay, that's fine. I think I'm accessible, but I'm blocked to hit that server. But back to this example, like there is latency. That's the difference. Okay, there is a very good example actually why I was hitting all these. Even for speed test, you can hit there's something called speedtest.in.net. And similarly, there might be something else as well. So if I do my speed test, it shows me the bandwidth and the latency between my server and any other server in Mumbai or any other location. You can perform this test from your desktop as well. So it will show the different. So this is right now. This is where the Surat. I'm somewhere down here, and it will try to trigger the test. And it will show me the latency and bandwidth, and there are a few more factors like packet loss, and there are many other factors. So basically, when I'm accessing any application, my request will go through all these scenario, and my request will hit the server, and then it will try to process my request, and then it will come back from database, and then from database to front end. Okay, and then from front end to the me. So what we covered actually, because test environment, this is the test environment. This what we have seen. Let me change the color, or let me change the shape and color as well. Let me change it to maybe something blue. No, orange. So this is the testing environment, and this is somewhere in the same network from where I'm testing, from the Loadrunner. But this user is anywhere in the world, and when it is hitting, these requests are going through all these parameters. So all these part I'm testing this the testing environment. I'm testing this under load test, stress test, longevity test, and spike test, because both these server are at the same location, my Loadrunner server and testing environment. But in network test, this user will be outside. So Loadrunner will send request to this user or wherever this user is located, and this user will be hitting the front end server. So I will be getting the network time as well. So this is called different names: network test, geography test, and many other different names. Okay. So this is again very rarely, very few people know about it because tools are associated with it, and again, you should have the customers who are globally accessing your application. If you have a local user, then you don't have to test through the network. Okay, so back to here. So network test is basically measuring performance at different network condition. All right, so that's all the different types of test, and let me try to save this because we covered questions today earlier, so that's why I have very less time actually to cover the remaining part. That's okay, I will save it later. Okay, so do you need the screenshot of this before I remove it? You can take it and maybe you can try to find certain factor, maybe scaling factor, or RAM, CPU disk, or no performance issue, or how performance issue, what is the PCAR, all these different types of tests. You can search on online, or you can try to find different openings in performance engineering, capacity planning, or APM or R&D. All right, so I'm going to rub this, and we will try to quickly move to our next part because we have hardly moved actually. No, we have moved better actually. Yeah. So what we have just now covered was different types of tests. But in order to move or start the our work in performance, like in every SDLC, you might have heard about SDLC, software development life cycle. Similarly, there is testing life cycle as well. So there is performance testing life cycle as well, you can say, life cycle. So there are different phases, as most of you already aware or already working, so already aware about SDLC. So similarly, there is called the requirement gathering. Okay, and then the other one is test planning. And there is one more is scripting. Then there is execution. And there is analysis and reporting. Okay. So why do we require these many different types of phases? Just now we have discussed the different types of test was the execution, right? That we do in the execution. But what are we executing? We should have some flows, right? Some users are performing maybe. So that's what we call as end-to-end test cases. So we try to cover the end-to-end test cases. We try to convert them end-to-end test case into scripts. That's what the scripting is. Then only we will be able to do execution. All the different 5 types of tests which we just discussed. But prior to that, I mean instead of directly jumping to end-to-end scripting or scripting of end-to-end test cases, we should have what are the different types of test cases. So that we try to get in the requirement gathering. There will be. So what do we identify is basically SLA. SLA service level agreement. So what is the response time SLA for different pages, and then we try to find the end-to-end different test cases. User volume, because that's what we are going to test, right? And there will be many more factors like the capacity, like how long we should keep on testing during stress test. PCAR, we try to identify, and then that's it majorly. Even test environment, if somebody can give those details, the production and test environment configuration. Even you can try to get from development the hardware detail, software detail, right? And that's it. Majorly, that's it. So what do we do in test planning then? So like in the SDLC, there is some timeline, some duration. The application will be available, and then you will be testing some milestone. So same will be there. So you will be covering here a test plan which will contain all the detail of what you are going to test, which scripts you are going to develop here, and which test you are going to execute here, and what are the requirements. That's what you are going to mention. Beside maybe stakeholders and maybe SLA, within which you want defects to be fixed. And the most important is what are the tools, because some customer might be able to buy the tool, or some customer already has, and some customer might want the just freeware tool, right? And so all these activity usually has their own timeline. Since these two activities are more important, the scripting and the execution, and these are the cyclic. These will keep on happening continuously. Why? Because let's say if there is a defect, then the developer will fix it, but you will have to retest it. So you might have to redo the script because of code changes, and then do the execution again. So this is a cyclic and this is an iterative manner. But ideally, all these activity happens in this manner only. But once you reach here, if there is an issue, if there is a defect, then you will be keep on doing this activity. This might take just a 1 week or 2 weeks, depending upon how much difficult and detailed project is. Test planning maybe again 1 to 2 weeks, not more than that. Scripting depends upon how many test cases you have. So let's say if you have 10 test case or 50 test case, again you can increase your ramp up. You can ramp up your team. You can have more performance tester to do scripting, and this might take maybe 2 weeks. If very huge scope, then 4 weeks, or maybe even more than that, 6 weeks. Execution, any guess how long this will take? This might take maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, anything, right? I mean, although you have just 5 tests, and you might be executing twice for consistency, but in case of defect, you might have to repeat this, right? So there is also no end until you fix the defect. Reporting analysis, again, it might take just 1 to 2 weeks, because what do we do here in the analysis? Like somebody asked question, what we try to measure in the longevity test, right? So whatever statistics we have found here, we try to analyze them and report them, because customer is going to need the similar detail. Whatever you ask him here, the similar fashion detail he will ask you here again back, whether my application supports these SLA. These user volume, whether the response time is, and at the peak hour, whether capacity is able to support SLA, and whether those user volume is sufficient, and within the response time. That's what we said here in the SLA. Okay, so here if you add it up, 1 week, and then 2 weeks, and then 1 week. So any project might be varying, up to 1 to 2 months in an average application. It might take even longer. If very huge application, then it might take 2 to 4 months. Okay, this is very huge application, maybe I can say, and this is small application or even medium application where scope is limited, or medium application. All right, that's it. I'm going to rub it again. We'll move quickly in another 5 minutes. So what else we have? We covered the types of tests, different phases of performance testing. We also said here the tools, right? But where do we need the tool? We just saw only for scripting and execution, right? Only for scripting, only for execution and scripting, right? Let me rub it and recall it again. So there are tools for scripting, which we just saw, for execution, for analysis, but all these tools are just for simulating the load. All these are only for like Loadrunner or any other tool. It can be even JMeter, right? It can be JMeter or any other freeware tool. But beside that, you also have profiling. So what do we do in profiling? We try to find out the root cause. So this helps maybe root cause analysis, you can say, or memory leak problem, or even CPU or thread locking, anything. So few examples of profiling tool like JProfiler, or there is, I think, .trace for .NET application, and many more. And there are different. So this is again one type of tool, but there are also tools required for monitoring, right? Why do we monitor? So all these things, all these we are simulating, right? This all we are doing execution and all on the server, but we'll have to monitor the server, whether it's going to crash or whether it's going to support more users, right? So monitoring tools, even Loadrunner supports monitoring, but there are few monitoring, and even APM, like just we said, application performance monitoring. So they can be Dynatrace, or there are many tools like App Dynamics. So production monitoring team uses it, or even during performance testing, we try to monitor the server. Okay, so there are tools for that. And one more thing we have seen today is the network test, and some people call it as geography test, very different name. But how we do this, I mean, should we travel to those locations like maybe Japan, China, and that's not possible, right? If some customer need testing from maybe 5 different continents, then it's not possible. The single person traveling here and there and performing same steps at a time. So there are tools actually, like Shundra is very popular tool. It's recently bought by HP. Recently means I think just 2-3 years back. I feel it as recently. And some freeware tool here as well, like NS Network Simulator. So all these tools are there, and but trust me, all these are not going to be necessary for all the customers. This hardly I have seen, but luckily I have seen it, so that's a good part. Profiling only when there are the issues. If there are no issues, then there's no need. This is required, simulation of load and all. Monitoring is required. You need tool, or there are few freeware monitoring as well. I think yesterday I have seen the Puffmon, which is available in the Windows. So this is as well, you usually get some part. But if you have all of these, then that will be very useful. Alright, so these are the different tools, and so how Loadrunner works, that I wanted to cover today, but we had questions in the beginning, so maybe in the next session, because we already have the Loadrunner in our scope in the next session, so we can try to cover that. Do you guys have any questions so far in today's session? So like yesterday I said, we have, okay, somebody was saying something.
Yeah, while doing performance testing, why do we consider only 98 percentile? Why not 85 or why not 95?
That's a good question actually. Are you from analytics background or the statistics?
No.
Okay. So do you know the percentile? Or anyways, I can tell. 90th percentile is just some factor actually. I don't know from where it has came, but Loadrunner provides it by default. Okay, but it's not necessary that we should be covering only this 90th percentile. Okay, you can configure it in Loadrunner. It is possible. You can simulate even 50th percentile or anything. So let's say if I have 10 numbers, maybe 1 to 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, or actually instead of this, let's say we run a test for 10 times and we got the response time, and let's say the response time are maybe 10 second, 12 second, 13 second, 8 second, something like that. And let's say we have such 100 numbers. Okay, so what is mean by 90th percentile? So if I sort all these 100 numbers in the descending order, or in the ascending order, actually in the ascending order, numbers in ascending order, then 90th value is 90th percentile, is 90th response time, 90th percentile response time. So why do we cover this actually? Just to avoid, by some mistake, there are some maximum response time due to any reason, and it happens, right? I mean, there are some outliers in our real life as well. Usually we call it as outliers because they are lying. If we're plotting some graph, so they are very high and they are very much away from the average. They are away from average, right? So we try to avoid them maximum, and similarly we should avoid minimum as well, right? But should we take the average response time? And what will be the average response time? That may be the 50th percentile, right? That's the average of all mean and max and everything, right? But what happens when you have a too many maximum? Your average will be also very high, right? And that's wrong actually. I mean, your outliers are impacting your the average response time, and it should not. So that's why people try to measure both the things, the average response time and 90th percentile, to get a feel of real response time. Okay, to cover the central part, the majority part, and minimum and maximum, those maybe can be ignored because it happens very few time. I mean, those numbers are only happening maybe once or twice. But this is configurable. 90th percentile can be changed, and you can change according to your standard, your customer standard. All right. Any further query?
Can we do profiling using Loadrunner?
No, because profiling is basically looking down inside the server and trying to fix the problem. And Loadrunner does provide different software, and they can also do the monitoring, but there are very different technologies. So in profiling, we try to look inside the code of maybe .NET or Java or C or maybe even HTML or anything, right? And that's not possible because so many different protocol and so many different languages. In Java, you might find the issue with maybe object or initialization, anything. In .NET, it might be thread locking, right? Or maybe process related. So that's why there are different tools, because profiling captures a very huge data. If you capture profiling maybe even for 5 minutes, then it may be 100 megabyte. And if you're using 100 users test and running for maybe 1 hour, then there will be 10 gigabyte of data. That's not possible, right? So we do not do the profiling throughout the test. We do only when there are performance issue, and whenever it is happening, we try to capture the data and do the profiling only for certain transactions where performance issues are there. So for profiling,
can I assume like this? I mean, we can identify what are the pages which has the performance through the Loadrunner.
Yes.
And they can do the profiling for those pages, right?
Yes, that's also possible. They can even enable the logs, and they can try to share those logs, and we can try to have analyze them. And logs is basically they might provide different detail, like every object being created at particular time and those being disposed at other time. So looking at timing, looking at size of those objects, we can analyze and try to fix the problem.
Okay.
All right. What I was going to say that yesterday we were up to this, like why we are doing the performance testing, maybe for better business and all that. But today we covered this is the second part of that PPT which we are covering today. So we covered all these 5 different tests and the performance testing requirement. That's also we covered. Performance testing tools we also covered. And these are the different phases, and what we do in each of these phases is also covered. And so how it works, basically I wanted to cover like what does Vision do and what are the different components of Loadrunner, but we'll cover these actually later. In the next one, sorry for that, I wanted to find it out some real life performance problem in your project. So either this you can assume like homework or something. So try to find out a real life performance problem. Either keep on reading newspaper or anywhere in the website and try to find what were their requirement, and then you will be able to think in that way. Okay. Also, I will recommend try to find out how Google has improved their performance. Okay. Why Google? Because it's very fast. So you might find a variety of technique which they have used, and also try to find similar technology. If your application is in database, then try to find it in Google, like how database been improved by any other user, any other customers. All right. That's it from my side actually, and I will try to share this PPT with Ashish, and he can share with all of you. This is just prepared by me, so I don't have any copyrights on that. So how are you liking this? Are you guys liking this course, and do you feel this useful and related to you?
It's really useful.
Okay.
Interesting also.
Okay. So how many are interested to join from tomorrow? So although that's question from Ashish actually, that should be. Right, we'll see. So this was only, yeah, you were saying something?
Yeah, but I can join, but we have daily meetings at 10 o'clock with our clients. So
You mean now or every day 10 o'clock?
every day.
Okay, and I started meeting at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So what was at your time, at your end?
I'll tell tomorrow if possible.
Yeah, sure. I was trying to find the start time of meeting today. Was that at 9 o'clock at your end, or I mean, are you in
Yeah.
India or?
In
Okay.
India only. 10 o'clock.
Okay, so that's good because our time is also, initially when we discussed with Ashish, so it was something 8:30 to 9:30 he was looking, and I said that's fine. So even 9 to 10 is also fine. So we are also trying to cover by 10 o'clock. But again, if everyone agrees to that. All right, I think Ashish needs the room, so I need to uh, close this meeting, and Ashish can share you this video. Thank you all of you for joining this meeting.
Thanks, Gaurav.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm disconnecting now. I need to attend the call.